Did you know that long before Europeans had ever performed a C-section, Ugandans were already doing it, and doing it for a very long time? Now, this is an entry that was made in the Edinburgh Medical Journal, Volume 20, in April 1884, pages 922 to 930. And this is what the entry says. In 1879, a British traveller by the name of R.W. Felkin witnessed a caesarean section performed by Ugandans. The healer used banana wine to semi-intoxicate the woman to try and to cleanse his hands and her abdomen prior to surgery. Now, this would only mean that this healer had a very deep understanding of pathology. They had a very deep understanding of microbes and pathogens. And this is why they knew to wash their hands and to clean her skin of pathogens by using alcohol in order to kill those. That can only mean a very deep understanding of medicine. And this is the same things that we do to this day in medicine. Now, so this healer used banana wine to semi-intoxicate the woman and to cleanse his hands, and so sanitize his hands and also sanitize the woman's abdomen prior to surgery. Literally how we perform medicine now. He used the midline incision. What that means is this healer had a very detailed understanding of the physiology of a woman's uterus, because a woman's uterus is an oval-shaped organ, and at around 30 weeks gestation, it separates into two segments, the upper segment and the lower segment. Now, he used a midline incision, which basically means that the incision was in the lower segment. And that proves a very deep understanding of how the uterus works, because the upper part of the uterus is the bit that contracts during childbirth. Now, an understanding of where to cut the uterus means that this woman would be able to have a vaginal birth after this section in subsequent births. So an understanding of where to cut midlines means that if you touch the upper part of the uterus, what basically that means is that in future, if this woman were to go through childbirth, there's a real risk that this person's uterus would rupture. And therefore, the use of this technique became realized actually not that long ago in the West. It's only in the last 40, 50 years that they actually started using the lower segment of the uterus to perform an incision. But he used a midline incision, applied cautery. What that means is he was cauterizing blood vessels, which is literally what they do in medicine today, because when a surgeon operates, when they cut the skin, of course, there are blood vessels that are going to start bleeding, and that would mean that they would hemorrhage. So when they cut, what they use is hot rods to burn off the blood vessels in order to stop the hemorrhaging. And this entry says this: he used a midline incision and applied cautery to minimize hemorrhaging. That is incredible. A real deep understanding of medicine. And the next bit is what blows my mind. He then massaged the uterus. What that basically means is that when the woman is not pregnant, the uterus is actually very small. It's the size of a pear. And when there's a baby there, then there's a lot of blood vessels as the uterus grows in order to grow her baby. Now, when the baby is gone, the uterus cannot remain inflated, and it must shrink back to its pregnant state in order to cut off the blood vessels. So he knew after the operation that he must massage the uterus in order for it to shrink back to its pre-pregnant state. And that is literally how in the West they perform C-sections. Wow. So he massaged the uterus to make it contract, but did not suture it. Suture basically means stitching. And that, wow. So listen. The abdominal wound was pinned with iron needles. That is literally what they do in modern science. They use staples, but they were using iron needles. So basically, exact same technique that is used in the West these days, but this was in the 1800s Uganda. Not only that, so the abdominal wound was pinned with iron needles and dressed with a paste from roots. Again, this is a very advanced knowledge of wound care, because they knew not to leave the wound like that, because they wanted to use agents that promote healing but also stop pathogens from getting into the wound. And so they make a paste and they cover the wound. Wow, my God. So the patient recovered well, and Felkin concluded that this technique was well developed and had clearly been employed for a very long time. The competence and the confidence of the people, so the competence and the confidence of the performers, basically gave the impression that this technique was very well developed and had been used for a very long time. And given that this was in 1979, it would imply that it's something that had been developed for centuries. Similar reports came from Rwanda, where botanical preparations were used to anesthetize the patient and promote wound healing. Here's the thing, people in Africa, unfortunately for Africans, we have basically relied on oral traditions, and it has not been documented. And the people that actually put it on paper were the Europeans. And unfortunately, the Europeans wanted to suppress this information. This is why this is not available anywhere. We are told Western medicine is the most advanced. But we were already doing what the Western medicine is doing now, but we were doing that a century ago. Wow. Just wow. Follow me, subscribe, like, comment, tell me what you think. Take care for now. Bye.